Good evening, everyone. We're so glad to have you back with us for as you view Nye County. My first guest tonight is going to be a medical doctor, and this is a medical doctor from a distance away. This is Dr. Sarna. She's also my doctor, and I'm so glad to have her on. Dr. Sarna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's absolutely a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today.
Well, we have so many things we want to talk to you about this evening, and I know it's going to be, I think, very interesting to our viewers because they know a lot about telehealth. They've heard a lot about it, but now they'll get a chance to experience exactly what it's all about, hearing it from a real doctor instead of just hearing it from other people that talk about the telehealth program. So let me ask you first,
Absolutely.
where are you located?
So I am actually located in California, in San Francisco.
Okay, San Francisco, and she's my doctor in Pahrump, Nevada. This is fantastic. Now, right now also, when I asked you if you'd be on the show, we had to delay it because you were going to have a baby. Can you tell us something about that?
That's absolutely right, Tom. Thank you for asking. I did have a baby 3 months ago at this point, and she's a little baby girl. She's the best baby. I know everybody says that about their baby, but she truly is. She's very happy, go lucky. She's always smiling, and she lets mama sleep. So that's important too. We're overjoyed though. Thank you for asking.
That is definitely fantastic. But you know, you're working with the VA and you're working telehealth. How did you get into that? How did you get connected with the VA? And tell us some of your background, where you got your degree, your MD, and so on.
Sure, sure. Well, it seems like it was ages ago at this point. I can hardly remember, to be honest, but I started in the VA actually in North Carolina, believe it or not. So I did some of my training in North Carolina, and part of our training includes an outpatient clinic, which is exactly what Pahrump is. And so my duty as a resident, as a trainee, was to go see veterans once a week at the clinic to learn from them while I was doing my residency training in North Carolina. And so I started there as a resident. And after that, they actually offered me a job as an attending at that same VA. It was a very small CBUC. I would say it was it might have even been smaller than some of the smaller CBUCs that you guys have encountered, and definitely not as pretty as the Pahrump CBUC or clinic. So I started there as an official attending, and it was wonderful because I already knew a lot of the veterans. And then a year after that, we were moved. Well, there was a big plan to make a very big healthcare center. It was a VA healthcare center in the same town in Greenville, North Carolina. And so in that year that I was kind of getting my wits about me as a new doctor, they built this beautiful, absolutely beautiful big VA center right across the street. And so when we moved there, they asked if I would apply for the chief of primary care position. And so I was a little bit nervous at first, but I thought, okay, I can do this. And so I was selected for that position, and I stayed there for the next 3 years. So my first 4 years were in North Carolina at the VA. And I used to tell my veterans, and I'll tell you the same, because you guys are on the journey with me too. I tell them all the time, you guys saw me grow up, not only as a doctor, but as a young person. I met my husband during that time. We got engaged during that time. We got married during that time. And he was from California. He had been doing his cardiology training in North Carolina, which is how we met. And so when we got married, he wanted to move back to California. And that's how I ended up moving to California, I should say. So I continued my journey through the VA in Sacramento. And then 2 years later, we moved back to San Francisco, which is home for him, the Bay Area. And that's how I ended up in this telehealth position. This was my first telehealth position, I will admit. And I, just like our patients, was a little bit skeptical. I was like, well, how's that going to work? But truth be told, it was the only position that I could get here in the Bay Area. And at that point, it was a secret, but we were pregnant with our first baby. And so we needed to make some moves. And so I said a little prayer and I took the job, or they took me, I should say. And I can honestly say it's been a wonderful experience. I really do love it. I think that you still get the same care that you get when you're in person. And I don't know, I feel like I've gotten to know my patients just as much as when I was seeing them physically. So that's how I ended up in telehealth. And that's how I ended up in California in telehealth. And then in San Francisco, our team serves many clinics that are actually kind of low or short-staffed on doctors or providers in California or throughout California, in the, I guess I should say Northern California. The first opportunity to go outside of the state was Pahrump. So Pahrump was in need of a doctor or a provider, and that's when I came on board, and they said, you're going to be the first doc to go outside of the state to, via telehealth to see patients. And so it really truly was a lot of firsts for me and our team, and we made it work. And, you're my patient, you know how it works firsthand, but just to kind of toot our own horn here in Pahrump, we have actually been one of the teams that really truly has gotten it right. We've been doing this for over 2 years at this point, and we've been the kind of example or the role model team for many of the telehealth teams here in California, and other teams, and the teams in California that have, that are serving sites outside of California. So we've really, we started as newbies at this, and we have worked through the kinks with the help of our patients that have gone along for the ride with us, and we've truly, made it a seamless operation at this point. So that is my journey. Sorry, that was a lot of a lot of traveling.
That's a great way to describe the journey. And I'd like to say, just for the listening audience, that I was very skeptical when they asked about going to telehealth. And I let them know right up front, I'll try it, but I'm not going to like it. And I'm going to let you know how much I don't like it. And that's when I first met you, that was the attitude I had. And after our first session, I changed completely. I did a complete 180. I said, this is my favorite doctor. I like the way she handles things. She goes into detail on everything. And she understands exactly what the patient needs. Now, there's some magic to it that I still don't understand, and you'll have to explain that. But
Sure.
When you say that you want to check my temperature or you want to check my heartbeat, and magically the nurse appears. The nurse comes right in, hooks everything up so that you can hear exactly what's going on, just like you're there in the room. It's just, like I say, it's magic. Now, how you guys make it work, I still don't know. It doesn't matter. I like it. And if I was offered a doctor there in the Pahrump clinic, and I had a choice between you and a doctor there in the clinic, I would stay with you only because I love the telehealth program. I love the way it works. It works. That's the key.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. I will definitely take the compliments back to our telehealth booth. I think, I think it says a lot about telehealth and how it's evolving, but I think it also, your comments, I know that you're complimenting us and me, and I'm flattered, but I'll compliment you too. It also says a lot about you as a patient and as a person. you have to be willing to try. And you said that from the beginning, I will try. And so we ask patients if they'd like to do telehealth, and it's not something that we're going to force them to do, but we tell them, look, we know we've had plenty of patients that are skeptical and plenty of patients that are like, absolutely not, I'm not doing it. I'm just going to do it because I'm here and I have something that I have to get resolved. And a lot of our patients that say that, then at the end say, oh, well, I guess I'll stick to this doc. Actually, I enjoyed it. And so it does require a little bit from both ends, from both parts. The doctor, obviously me, I have to try my best to make you feel like, hey, I'm right there with you, even though I'm not. And it also requires that the patient keep an open mind about it and an open heart about it. So thanks for saying that. I think a lot of patients need to hear that. Just try it one time. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you do, hey, we did something new.
We get responses when I talk to other veterans, and we get responses on both sides of that spectrum. But I'm going to have to say, predominantly, veterans love it. We do have one or two that say, well, I really don't care that much for telehealth. But I think they're coming around. They're changing. I haven't heard
Absolutely.
Say, I will never, ever do telehealth again. We haven't gotten to that point.
Good. And the magic that you speak of, we'll call it magic too, but if you guys want an insider's view or take on how the VA works or how we make the magic happen, we are communicated all throughout the VA actually via what's called instant messaging. It's just like instant messaging that you would do, for business through Skype, for business meetings, etc. So we're using a new program at this point, but we're able to communicate with each other even while we're seeing patients. And so if I need a temperature check, I can quickly send a message to my nurse and tell her I need a temperature check on Mr. Waters, and she comes right in and she gets it done. So that's a little bit behind the magician.
Well, it worked perfectly, and that's what it's all about. Look, we're closing up on session 1, and I'm going to tell everybody to stand by for session 2. Okay, welcome back. We're so glad to have you back with us. We have Dr. Sana. She's our telehealth doctor, and she's serving Pahrump, but she lives in California, and she has done so much for the veterans in the Pahrump area, but not only Pahrump, I'm going to say throughout the VA, because she's a VA doctor. But you have a team working with you. Can you tell us something about your team?
Absolutely. I always say this is a team effort. I am just one small part.
Oh,
so I do have a team, actually. I have a team of nurses in Pahrump that are the faces that you guys see. Rosemary and Vilma have been my nurses since I started. And then I also have an MSA, which is the person that schedules your appointments and catches some of your phone calls regarding, hey, can I see her sooner, etc. And that's Brianna. And then on the San Francisco side of things, we have a pharmacist, a clinical pharmacist. Her name is Shirley, and many of you already know her. And then we also have a group of people that are psychologists, psychiatrists that work on a team here that help us via telehealth to help you guys in Pahrump as well. Some of you will know some of them too. And there's a few that help us. Alyssa has been one of them, and Alex has been another one. And so we are actually a very big team of people that make this work. I'll tell you a little bit more about how we kind of work together. So okay. The nurses obviously are the interface for you guys. They're the ones that get you into the room. They take vital signs for our patients, and they ask whatever questions they need to ask to get things started. Rosemary, which is the RN on the team, it basically works behind the scenes a lot of times. She triages patient phone calls. She helps us get paperwork together. She helps us with almost anything and everything that pops up that I can't get to right on the spot because I'm seeing patients. So she is, I tell patients all the time, she's my right hand and my left hand in Pahrump. And then on the San Francisco side, our clinical pharmacist, Shirley, she is very helpful in helping us get your health better in general. So she works on high blood pressure with you guys. She works on diabetes. She works on cholesterol. So she helps me do my job. She helps me get everyone's numbers looking good so that you guys are feeling good, because that's the point of having numbers, right? We're not just chasing numbers here. We're using the numbers to help us get to a goal, which is, you know, by the standards and by the medical guidelines is where you should be. And so Shirley does a lot of patient encounters. She actually talks to you guys on the phone, or she can also do telehealth visits to get blood pressures under control, sugars under control for patients that are hypertensive and diabetic. And so we are, you know, constantly, I would say, working towards the benefit of the patients. And I mean, that's our job. And as a team, I think we work well together. The psychologists help us in the sense that if patients feel like they need some motivation to lose weight, or to take their medications compliantly, or, you know, they need a little bit of help with diet because they're diabetic and they have a sweet tooth. We all do. And so the psychologist can help us with that motivational stuff. And they can also help us with what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically teaching our brain how to break the bad habits and make good ones. They're also very helpful for smokers that want to quit. And so we have a lot of little things that we can help with as a team to make you guys feel better, which is the point of all this, right?
We love it. Absolutely. Now, you know, there's another thing going on because we have the coronavirus. A lot of people now are looking at the vaccine. And can you tell us something about how veterans get notified about the vaccine and what happens?
Well, as we alluded to in the beginning, I've been out on maternity leave for a little bit. So I'll tell you what I know. I believe that they're doing vaccines in the Las Vegas VA Center, simply because we haven't figured out how to take the vaccine that requires these the cooling measures and the freezers out to the C box or to the clinics. So I think right now they're working on how to do that so that patients don't have to drive all the way to the Las Vegas VA Center to get those done. I believe that they were working on getting patients that are at higher risk done first. I imagine that they are calling patients. You can also contact your primary care health team, and they can probably give you more information for your specific clinic. In terms of Pahrump, I would say we're not there yet, but they're working on a plan to get the vaccines to Pahrump so that patients from Pahrump don't have to drive to the medical center. When that's going to happen, I can't tell you. As far as I can tell from the updates we've gotten, it's still a work in progress.
So if somebody right now decide, well, look, I'm interested in getting the vaccine, what do I do? You say, call your primary care clinic, and they should be able to give you an update, regardless of whether it's Pahrump or some other CBOC somewhere else.
Correct. That would be the advice that I would give to patients. Call your primary care clinic. They will know the up-to-date information and whether they're able to do the vaccine in the primary care clinic or whether they'd have to drive to the medical center to get it done. I think in the next few weeks, we will be able to get it done in the clinic. It may only be on Mondays, or it may only be on a certain day of the week, or possibly even the weekends. But I think that, again, I think this is a work in progress. We're going to know more as the days come. And but as a good first step, if you're interested in the vaccine, which I highly recommend it, please call your primary care so that you can get the information as to when it's going to be available and where you're going to have to go to get it.
And you have to have the initial shot, and in most cases right now, you have to have the second shot as well.
Correct. So it depends on which one you get. Right now, the two that are FDA approved are the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine. There's no rhyme or reason for which one a patient gets. You can't pick which one you get. It's basically what we have available. So at the time of whenever the patient goes, it may be one or it may be the other. I believe that for the Pfizer vaccine, you have to wait 21 days for the second dose. And for the Moderna vaccine, it's 28 days. So it's about 4 weeks. Both have very good effectiveness. And thus far, that's what we have. This is an evolving problem. You know, coronavirus is new to me as much as it is to you guys. And so every day we make a little bit more progress on how to get this under control.
And, you know, I haven't mentioned tonight on the show, but I have received my first vaccine, and I'm scheduled for the second, and it's by appointment only at the VA hospital. Once they move it to the clinic in Pahrump, I know it'll still be by appointment, but it'll be available to everybody that wants it. I know they're doing it by age. They're doing it by who really needs it, and they'll go in that route as far as priority. But then later on, everybody who wants one it'll be available for everybody. And that's what we're trying to get to. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's the nationwide plan. So we're trying to, they started with healthcare providers, healthcare staff, healthcare workers, because we have the most exposure to the virus. And so that's where they started. They are now, I think, in most states moving on to patients that are high risk. So, you know, patients that are older, usually 75 and older. I think possibly we're also moving into the 65 and older tier, if you want to call it that. And you know, kind of depending on what state you're in, they're going to be on different levels of those tiers. But as a nation, we're kind of moving in the direction of everybody getting the shot and getting as many people vaccinated as possible. The only way to stop this thing is to get it to stop spreading. And if we can get it to stop spreading, we can get it to stop mutating into a stronger variant of the virus that, you know, could potentially be spread faster and be deadlier. And so the virus is smart. We got to outsmart this thing. And the vaccine is one step in that direction. Wearing a mask obviously is the number one priority, as well as washing your hands, especially while you can't get the vaccine. Even after the vaccine, just so that viewers understand, you can still get the virus. The point of the vaccine is to prevent the very severe symptoms, right, that can eventually, obviously, kill patients. And so you can still get the virus with the vaccine, but you would get a much milder form, and your body would be a lot better at attacking it and getting rid of it before it causes too much damage.
You know, I know everybody really appreciate all the information you provided on this, because we have all those questions, the new strains that are coming out as well. And the vaccine is going to help no matter what strain it is. Is that correct?
As far as we know right now, that's what they're saying. They're saying that the vaccine is still effective against the newer strains. The point is, we need to stop the virus from continuing to mutate into newer and more deadly strains. So getting the vaccine, it will help prevent that, because it'll help stop the spread faster. So that's what we need. We need to be quicker than the virus.
Dr. Sarna, I do want to say I am so thankful that you agreed to do this show. I know the viewing audience, they're going to receive so much information, and probably everybody's going to be signing up for telehealth now that you've so We really
Thank you.
appreciate you being here. I want to thank you personally for being my doctor and for doing all the great work you're doing for all of our veterans.
Absolutely. Anytime. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. And for everybody else, come back and see us during our next session. Welcome back. We're so glad to have you back with the show. And I have a new guest. And my new guest is Laura Debbingham. And I'm going to talk to Laura and welcome her to the show first, of course, and at the same time, ask her some things about herself and her background as well. So Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom. Thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you with us. Now, it says Laura Debbingham, LMSW. Now, a lot of people look at letters after a name and they don't know exactly what they stand for. So what does LMSW stand for?
Well, I'm licensed to practice social work, and I am also a master's level social work. I have a master's degree. I am not a licensed clinical social worker. That's an LCSW, because halfway through my my LCSW internship, I was offered a job at Great Basin College, and I decided to kind of channel my energies in education rather than in clinical work.
Well, how long have you been involved in this?
This is my 4th year for Great Basin College, and it's just an amazing opportunity, amazing institution. I love how the president of the college calls it the gold standard in the Silver State, and I think that's really what a lot of the professionals are attempting to do. We have great faculty and great staff supporting the students.
You know, you were on the show once before, but it's been such a long time. And I know the viewing audience, they're looking at this saying, well, it's social work, but we need to know why it's going to be important to our audience. I have to ask, because of COVID, you know, has the need for social workers changed?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's an increased need. And I just posted an article on the Great Basin College Social Work Facebook page about that, about how there's an increased need for social workers. And with more anxiety, we have more substance abuse, domestic violence, and the kind of mental health issues that would stay dormant when there's not this kind of anxiety going around in our culture, they're coming to the surface. And so we need trained professionals out there able to serve individuals who, you know, find themselves in trouble. One of the things this article says is that social workers help clients reinvent themselves. And I think that's something that all of us are doing right now through the COVID crisis, is we're reinventing how we see the world, how we navigate everything. And so that's a big part of what social workers do.
If somebody wanted to access that article, how could they do it? I know you said it's on Facebook page.
Yeah.
But help
Just
us
go
out.
to the social work, the Great Basin College Social Work Program. That's the title of the Facebook page.
Okay. And they can go to that and they can read the entire article.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And find out more about the program as well. And there's a link to the website.
Okay. I like the fact that you said, you know, people are going to be reinventing themselves because, as you said, you know, there's so much going on. And I guess during COVID, we've changed a lot.
We
And
have.
some things probably will never, ever be the same. But I guess social workers and talking to social workers can help get us through this, just like
Absolutely.
anything else.
Well, one of my favorite things about social work philosophy is that we have what we call the strengths perspective. So we're always trying to see what a client's strengths are, what a group's strengths are. If we're helping a whole family or community, we look for the strengths. And that, I think that makes a difference. And there's strengths that we are seeing through COVID. We're seeing determination. You know, we're seeing people, maybe we're not able to come together, you know, physically, we have to stay 6 feet apart, but we're coming together in other ways. Things like online education. You know, Great Basin College has been able to be one of the stable institutions throughout all this because we've been doing online education for some time. You know, we have a 8,000 square mile campus, so You know, we kind of have had to do that, and so it's not new for us. We've kind of figured that out. I do a lot of online lectures. I do a lot of Zoom classes, that kind of thing. And so it makes the program very accessible to people in rural areas like much of Nevada is. And that's where there's such a need for social workers too, is in rural areas.
You know, I hear many people say they talk about a community college and they talk about Great Basin College, and many people don't know that Great Basin College give 4-year degrees.
I know.
So-
It's crazy.
So it's
Yeah.
not a community college, but it is located in the community, but it is a 4-year college.
Right. Well, and what's crazy about the program that I coordinate is it's a university degree because we call it the 3+1 program. So students do their first 3 years at Great Basin College, and then they do their last year at University of Nevada, Reno. And so they pay community college prices the first 3 years, and then they get a university quality degree. And I
Oh,
have to,
excellent.
right, I'm accredited through UNR. And so I have to have, my syllabi has to match up with theirs, and I have to teach comparable information.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you more about the 3+1 program anyway. But what are some of the specific career opportunities in social work in rural Nevada?
Okay, you know what? I actually looked up some this morning because I knew you were going to ask me that. And I looked up, is it Succeed is the name of that website? And it's crazy. There's so many jobs out there right now. A lot of them are in urban areas, but there's always rural opportunities as well. In Veteran Affairs, there's a job right now that's being offered at $111,000 a year for a licensed clinical social
I want
worker.
that job.
Right? And but you have to have the qualifications. My students, you know, if they can get a B or better in all their social work classes, they're qualified to get into the accelerated master social work program at UNR, which takes a little over a year to complete. So my students can go from high school to a master's degree in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and what's crazy is right now, I actually have a couple of high school students who are already getting college credits while they're in high school. I have one young lady, this girl is amazing. She's got she has 8 college classes already under her belt.
Wow.
While in high school. So she's going to be able to get into that master's program in 3 years. So proud of her.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but the job opportunities, I get emails and phone calls all the time from rural agencies looking for social workers. I've actually got several of my students right now are doing volunteer work with agencies right here in Pahrump. We set the students up to do an internship in their community so that they can get that hands-on experience when they're in their senior year of study. And that counts as 2 college classes, just doing their
Okay.
internship.
So the jobs are available, and
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot of people
there's
out there are
such need.
looking for jobs. And some people, like you said, they're transforming their lives. And this is an opportunity. If you're interested at all in social work, you need to contact Laura and say, hey, this is something I'm interested in. Laura, how would they contact you if they were interested?
Well, they can call the campus here in Pahrump at 775-727-2000. 727-2000, or they can look us up online, gbc.edu, and look up the social work program. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody at any time. I love to talk about this program, as you can see.
So if they had different organizations that were looking for a speaker, they would contact you and you'd come out and speak to them?
Absolutely.
Tell them all about the program?
Yeah. In fact, you and I were talking about autism for a minute. As you know, that was one of my specialty areas when I was doing clinical work. And I actually, a year ago, I was in Budapest, Hungary, and I spoke at the International Autism Congress. It was such an amazing opportunity right before COVID hit, and kind of the last really awesome, fun travel thing I got to do before COVID hit. But yeah, I love to speak about a variety of mental health topics and just share the information about how social workers really can make a difference in this world.
You know, autism is such a big, it's something very interesting. When I say that, there are many people who don't understand it. They don't understand the children that have it. And it's so important that we do understand. And to have social workers explain it to us, I think would be,
Yeah.
well, it's eye-opening.
Yeah, it's not a defective way of being, it's a different way of being. That's what I like
Okay.
to say. It's a different way of seeing the world. People on the autism spectrum are motivated differently than neurotypical individuals are. And you know what? They are so much fun. I have a son on the spectrum, and can I tell you, he was so much easier to raise because I could basically predict, what he was motivated by.
Okay.
And so they can be challenging individuals to work with, but they also can be fairly predictable.
But only a good social worker would know that.
Well, and one of the things I tell my students every day is that the challenges that you've experienced actually make you a better social worker.
Okay.
So I have one student here in Prump who her husband passed away, and she, spiraled into a deep depression, but was able to get help. And now she wants to help others who are in a similar situation. So yeah, students who struggle with parenting, I tell them all the time, you know what? Kids are the best training for social work because you will have clients who are struggling in similar areas. And you have built-in empathy when you've kind of been there, done that. So my students that come from backgrounds of trauma, they're the ones who actually make fabulous social workers.
One of the questions I'm going to ask you is, what are social work students doing in the prompt in this area right now?
Oh,
And
okay.
some you've covered, and some we're going to have to wait until the next session.
Okay.
But go ahead and give us about 30 seconds worth.
Okay, I'm going to tell you about John. Okay, John is a substance abuse counselor for Vegas Stronger. He also is a case manager for Crossroads of Southern Nevada. This guy is so sharp. He keeps his web campus page open on his computer so that he can do homework in between seeing clients. And then I have a student, Jenna. Jenna's a dance mom. She has 3 daughters who are very involved in dance. I tell her she's doing some of the preparatory work to prevent her kids from getting involved in some of the derogatory things that kids can get involved in. And she does her homework while her kids are rehearsing and in between driving them to and from dance lessons.
That's exactly what we need to hear. Now, I know we're running out of time for this session, but we're going to continue this on into the next session. And we want you to be sure to write this down, be sure to get in touch with Laura if you have any questions about anything, and come back and join us. Welcome back. This is the final session of our show today, and we have Laura Debbingham. She's a licensed social worker, has a master's degree, so it's LMSW, and she's told us so much about social work and so on. One of the questions I asked as we were closing the session about her students, and she was giving a lot of information about her students. I want to switch just a little, but at the same time go back to her students, because when we look at February is Black History Month, as everybody knows, and if you don't know, you should know. And what are social work students learning that'll help them better serve our diverse population? And you can go back and talk about your students this way.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Well, social workers are one of our philosophies, and basically part of our code of ethics is to be a voice to the vulnerable. And so these oppressed populations are part of who we target. You've heard of the term privilege, and I know that's kind of a buzzword right now.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Yeah, the article that was written in 1989 by Peggy McIntosh it has actually been required reading for social workers for probably several decades before it became a buzzword for everyone else. And what social workers come to understand is that if you come from a place of privilege, you have an opportunity and maybe a responsibility to make a difference in the lives of those who are marginalized or oppressed. And some of my students, I have several Native American students that are working to get their education to bring back services to their tribe. And I also have students not only in rural areas. I have students in urban areas. Right now, I have students in both Reno and Nevada here, and I actually have a student in that is in a bigger community in Texas right now. Because it's a mostly online program, I get students from all over the place. But these students in urban areas, typically they may come from populations that are more marginalized. And if they come from a background that better understands how to work with these individuals, guess what? That's all the better. So that's I love talking about my students. I love talking
Great.
about my students. Let me share a few others with you. I have one student, I'm going to call her Jane, and she is in her 60s and is a bartender and decided, you know what, I'm listening to people's problems all the time. Why not get my social work degree?
That's right.
And to be able to do it sitting on a couch instead of, behind a bar. I have another student, I'll call him Ben. And Ben moved here from New York City, and he started property investing here and became very, very successful. And he wants to give back now. He wants to give back to this area.
Okay.
I have a wonderful student named Nicole who helped out with the angel tree here in Pahrump. My student Teresa, okay, this lady, I got to tell you, I've never met anyone with such a positive attitude. Teresa is one of the secretaries, the head secretary at Child Protective Services here in Pahrump. And she's not my only Child Protective Services secretary, who I think part of what she does is she looks around, sees the challenging situations that children are in, sees the how there's such a great need for more social workers. Mm-hmm. She sees what the social workers are doing, and I could do that. And so we got her signed up for classes, and she just so excited for every semester to start. And I just love her enthusiasm. It makes me feel, a measure of definite success for what I'm doing, Blanca, her husband passed away. I think I told you about her. And she basically just wants to be able to help others the way she has been helped.
This is fantastic. As you talk about your students, just having a degree, whether it's an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, master's, or a doctorate, all degrees are valued. But why is a social work degree valued among professionals?
I think because it's not something that's readily accessible. It's not a 6-week program. It's not a weekend seminar. It does take time. It's rigorous training. Again, I have to, have the same requirements for my program that UNR does. And so this is training that medical, legal professionals, educators, we have social workers in schools all over Nevada, and that's something different than what a guidance counselor does. A school social worker does something very different. We're qualified to run groups and do therapy if we have that license with students who are in need. And so it's a kind of training that professionals recognize and value. I think the different medical personnel, I have a daughter who's a physician, and she really values, when she works in an emergency room, and she really values what the social workers contribute in the ER. Because when she's got someone that comes in who's presenting with a mental health issue, she's been trained to do the physical stuff. She's been trained to see the body as a machine. But a social worker sees the individual as someone who is part of this broader system, part of their culture, but also part of the environment that's around them. Maybe that has to do with substances, But we're trained to see that. In criminal justice, people are trained to see individuals perhaps more as criminals, but social workers are trained to see them as individuals with unique needs. And so I think that every professional kind of values that type of training.
What are some areas of specialty in social work?
Well, as I've stated, there are medical social workers. Hospitals are always looking for social workers to work in the medical field to better, help individuals who are. I remember when my mom was in the hospital, and we had her on a breathing machine, and we had to decide whether or not to take her off this. She had been hit by a car, really sad story, and it was the social worker that sat down with us and helped us make that decision. Social workers are there when a newborn baby needs a tiny little car seat. You know, there's so many practical reasons for a medical social worker. The legal professions, I worked for many years teaching court-ordered classes in parenting and domestic violence to individuals who are, you know, facing legal action because of their own behavior, and so they need that extra help. And I've seen change. That's one of the things social workers are trained to do, is we believe that people are capable of change. And you can't not believe that if you're a social worker. But I've seen it, you know.
Okay.
I've seen how people who have been convicted with a domestic violence count against them have been able to change and overcome substance abuse issues and overcome maybe, you know, some of the attitudes that they've had in the past about women and about things like that. So so there's several areas. Education, as I've said, is an area that's really huge for social workers right now. We need
Yes.
more school social workers.
Now, here's something I just happened to think of while we were talking, and it's they said many times a lot of the problems with police officers and rowdy pedestrians, there's sometimes they need somebody to mediate if the person is before taking deadly force against the person. Would a social worker be working in that area?
There are actually social workers who are hired by police departments to go on crisis intervention calls.
Okay.
And so, in fact, I heard of a social worker, a master's level social worker in Detroit, who is heading up a police department. So,
Okay.
yeah, the world is changing. You know, we're seeing things differently.
Oh, I love that. Now, are any scholarships available for social work students, specifically for them?
Absolutely, and financial aid is always something that is available to students, to every student. But for social workers specifically, we have some new scholarships that have come available just recently. We have one new scholarship called the Luke Anderson Rural Nevada Behavioral Health Workforce Development Scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Long name.
Long name, but this is dedicated to a young man who lost his life to suicide. And this is a scholarship that was put together by his mom and by a hospital that wanted to contribute, and we are accepting donations to that scholarship. This
Okay.
helps students specifically in the rural areas. That's what we wanted this scholarship targeted to rural students. And so that's one that's just recently come available. But in every community, there are scholarships available for someone who is serious about becoming a social worker, especially in our rural Nevada communities,
Okay.
because there is such a great need.
With all the things that you've talked about in social work, all the things you've talked about for UNR as and Great Basin College, uh, people that are watching should definitely be interested, if they're interested at all in helping our society, helping our community, they can look into social work. Again, give those phone numbers again that you gave earlier if anybody has any questions at all about social work.
Yeah, and you know what I like to say, Tom, if you want to make a difference while you make a living, become a social worker. And the phone number for Great Basin College here in Pahrump is 775-727-2000.
Okay.
And our web address is gbc.edu.
And you talked about the Facebook page.
Right, the Facebook page is just Great Basin College Social Work Program.
And with that, you can get all the information you need to either join the program, get a degree in social work, whatever it is you're interested in doing. That's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure that Laura came and talked to you during the show tonight, just to give you all of this information. It's readily available. And we have so many people that are interested. Laura, if you wanted to sum up social work, what would you say in summing it up? I know we're running out of time.
I would say that, you know, if you come from a background of trauma, if you've had a challenging life, we need you. We need your perspective. We need your built-in empathy. And this is a great place to get an education. Very, very valued. We value our students. We do everything we can to empower our students and to help them achieve their goals.
You know, tonight's show has just been fantastic. And to have Laura on and talk about social work and all the differences that social workers make in the lives of all of our people, I think it's important that we have social workers that are interested in helping us. So if you're interested at all, be sure to contact the phone numbers that Laura gave earlier so that you can also be of value to our society. Social work is important. That's why I wanted to have Laura on tonight, and we'll have her back later in the future. Thank you for watching.